What if everything you were told about your weakening legs was only half the truth? Or worse, completely missing the real cause, sitting right on your plate every day. The idea that exercise alone can restore strength in aging muscles sounds comforting, but modern research is pointing somewhere far more specific and far more surprising. As a surgeon who has spent decades studying how nutrition interacts with muscle tissue at a cellular level, I can tell you the evidence is not vague or theoretical. It is consistent, measurable, and increasingly difficult to ignore. What it shows about how people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and even 90s maintain leg strength is something most medical advice still fails to properly communicate. I am Dr. William Lee, and today I want to walk you through a structured approach to rebuilding leg strength through nutrition alone. Not supplements, not extreme routines, but everyday foods that directly influence how your muscle cells repair, respond, and resist decline. We are going to move through 5 specific foods that science now links to improved lower body strength, balance, and mobility in older adults. And I need to be clear from the start. The decline many people accept as normal aging is not as fixed as it seems. Before we begin the list, there is one study that changed the way I look at muscle aging entirely. Researchers at Tufts University's Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging followed 1,800 adults between the ages of 65 and 92 over a 3-year period. What they discovered was not subtle. Participants who consistently consumed targeted protein-rich and anti-inflammatory foods showed 38% better preservation of lower body muscle mass. Even more striking, they experienced a 44% lower rate of clinically significant muscle loss compared to those eating standard healthy diets. These are individuals well into their 80s and 90s, showing measurable preservation of strength simply through dietary patterns. That finding alone challenges the idea that muscle loss is unavoidable. And it becomes even more interesting when you realize that the first food on our countdown is something many seniors have been avoiding for decades, often due to outdated nutritional warnings. But before we go further, I want you to think about your own experience. Whether it is difficulty standing from a chair, climbing stairs, or simply maintaining balance, your situation matters here. Because what we are discussing is not abstract science. It is directly connected to how you move every day and how independent you remain in the years ahead. Now we begin the countdown, starting with number 5. Number 5 is salmon, specifically wild-caught salmon. Most people think of salmon as a heart-healthy food, and that is true, but its impact on aging muscle is far more specific than generally discussed. Inside aging muscle tissue, a condition develops known as anabolic resistance. This means your muscle cells gradually become less responsive to the protein you consume. It is as if the biological lock is still there, but it has become stiff, requiring more effort for the same result. This is where omega-3 fatty acids, especially EPA and DHA found in wild salmon, become crucial. They reduce chronic inflammation inside muscle tissue, helping restore sensitivity so the muscle can respond properly to protein again. In simple terms, they help loosen that biological lock, allowing rebuilding processes to function more effectively. Research from the University of Aberdeen found that older adults supplementing with omega-3 levels equivalent to 2 servings of fatty fish per week experienced around a 20% improvement in muscle protein synthesis. That means their bodies were rebuilding muscle more efficiently, even when total protein intake remained the same as those who did not consume omega-3s. This difference becomes increasingly important after age 65, when the body's natural efficiency in muscle repair begins to decline more rapidly. Wild salmon also contains astaxanthin, a powerful antioxidant responsible for its pink color. This compound plays a different but equally important role inside aging cells, particularly within mitochondria. Oxidative stress builds up over time. Astaxanthin helps neutralize this damage, protecting the energy systems inside muscle cells that are responsible for endurance and strength. Some research suggests it is one of the most potent antioxidants found in food, especially for mitochondrial protection. A practical intake would be 4 to 6 ounces of wild-caught salmon, 3 to 4 times per week. Cooking method matters here. Baking or poaching is preferred because high heat frying can degrade omega-3 structure and reduce its effectiveness. Pairing salmon with steamed vegetables like broccoli and a small amount of olive oil enhances absorption and cellular activity. Broccoli contains compounds that activate detoxification pathways, while olive oil improves fat-soluble nutrient uptake. Now we move to number 4, which shifts from fatty fish to a food that plays a very different role in muscle rebuilding: Greek yogurt. There is a real-world case that illustrates this clearly. Margaret, an 81-year-old retired piano teacher from Ohio, had experienced 2 falls within a single year. Her strength was declining, particularly in her lower body, and simple movements like standing up from a chair had become difficult. Her diet was generally balanced, but she had one critical gap. She consumed almost no high-quality protein. In the morning, we introduced a single change: 1 cup of full-fat plain Greek yogurt every morning within 30 minutes of waking. The results over 12 weeks were measurable. Her sit-to-stand test improved by 31%, and she reported a noticeable increase in stability during daily movement. More importantly, she had no further falls. Greek yogurt is particularly effective because it contains high levels of leucine, an amino acid that acts as a trigger for muscle protein synthesis. Without enough leucine in a single meal, the body struggles to initiate muscle repair, even if total daily protein intake is sufficient. After age 75, the body requires even more leucine to achieve the same response due to increased anabolic resistance. 1 cup of Greek yogurt typically provides around 3 grams of leucine, which crosses the threshold needed to activate muscle rebuilding pathways in older adults. Studies from McMaster University show that consuming leucine-rich protein in the morning leads to better muscle preservation over time compared to distributing the same protein later in the day. This is because the body is more receptive to rebuilding signals after overnight fasting. Adding a small amount of flaxseed improves this effect further. Flaxseed contains omega-3 ALA, which reduces inflammation that interferes with amino acid uptake in aging cells. This makes the leucine in yogurt more effective at triggering muscle repair processes. At this stage, it is important to recognize a pattern emerging. Each food is not simply adding protein. It is influencing how the body processes and responds to that protein at a cellular level. That distinction is what separates basic nutrition from targeted muscle support in aging populations. Now we continue to number 3, which focuses on a food that affects not just muscle strength, but oxygen delivery and endurance in the legs: spinach. Spinach, especially when cooked, contains high levels of dietary nitrates. These compounds convert into nitric oxide in the body, which helps widen blood vessels and improve oxygen flow to working muscles. This process directly impacts endurance, particularly in the lower body, where circulation becomes less efficient with age. Spinach also contains a plant compound known as ecdysterone, which research suggests may activate muscle-building pathways similar to certain anabolic signals, but through a natural food-based mechanism. Studies from institutions such as Freie Universität Berlin have shown increases in muscle fiber size in participants consuming ecdysterone-rich diets over several weeks. In aging adults, where natural anabolic hormone levels decline significantly after 70, this alternative pathway becomes particularly relevant. It provides a non-hormonal signal that still encourages muscle maintenance and growth. Cooking spinach lightly improves mineral absorption and reduces compounds that can block nutrient uptake. When combined with garlic and olive oil, the effects on blood flow and nitric oxide production are further enhanced, creating a stronger overall impact on muscle oxygenation. Now we transition into number 2, which is one of the most misunderstood foods in modern nutrition history: eggs. We now move into number 2, And this is where the conversation about muscle strength becomes even more personal because it involves a food that many people were taught to fear for decades, even though the science has shifted significantly since those warnings first became popular. Number two is eggs, whole eggs, including the yolk. For years, seniors were advised to avoid egg yolks because of cholesterol concerns. That guidance shaped entire generations of eating habits, and in many cases, it led to unintended consequences for muscle health, particularly in older adults who needed those nutrients the most. Let me tell you about Walter, a 8-year-old retired carpenter from Pittsburgh. When I first reviewed his case, he had already adjusted his lifestyle in several positive ways. He avoided processed foods. He tried to stay active, and he followed what most doctors would consider a heart-conscious diet. But despite all of that, his lower body strength had steadily declined. He needed a cane for walking short distances, especially outside his home. When we analyzed his nutritional profile more closely, a clear issue appeared. He was missing several critical nutrients that are concentrated almost exclusively in whole eggs. These included choline, vitamin D, and a complete amino acid profile that supports muscle repair in aging tissue. Egg whites alone were not enough to provide this combination. We introduced a simple change: 2 whole eggs every morning. Within 16 weeks, Walter's improvement was measurable. His leg press strength increased by 27%, and he no longer relied on his cane for short indoor distances. More importantly, he reported feeling more stable and confident when standing and walking, which directly affects fall risk in older adults. Whole eggs are often described in nutrition science as a complete protein, meaning they contain all essential amino acids in proportions that closely match what the human body requires for tissue repair. This is not just about quantity of protein, but about how usable it is at the cellular level. One of the most important components in eggs for muscle function is choline. Choline plays a key role in nerve signaling, including the signals that tell your muscles when to contract in the lower body. This becomes critical for balance, posture, and coordinated movement. Without sufficient choline, the communication between nerves and muscles becomes less efficient, which contributes to weakness and instability. Vitamin D in egg yolks also plays a central role in muscle function. It supports the activation of muscle fibers, especially fast twitch fibers, which are responsible for quick, stabilizing movements like catching yourself if you stumble or standing up from a chair. After age 75, vitamin D receptor sensitivity in muscle tissue declines significantly, making dietary sources even more important. Research from the University of Connecticut has shown that older adults consuming whole eggs regularly experience greater improvements in thigh, muscle thickness, and overall strength compared to those consuming egg whites alone, even when total protein intake was similar. This highlights a key point. It is not just protein that matters, but the nutrient matrix surrounding it. 2 whole eggs per day, ideally prepared without highly processed oils, can provide a strong foundation for muscle maintenance. Cooking methods like boiling, poaching, or light scrambling in butter are generally preferred for preserving nutrient integrity. There is also an important synergy effect here. When eggs are consumed with vitamin C-rich foods, such as fruit or a small glass of orange juice, collagen production is supported. Collagen is essential for tendons and ligaments, which connect muscle force to actual movement. Without strong connective tissue, even improved muscle strength does not fully translate into better mobility. Now, as we move toward the final and most controversial food in this countdown, we enter territory that challenges some of the most deeply ingrained dietary beliefs of the past several decades. Number 1 is red meat, specifically lean, unprocessed, grass-fed beef, consumed in moderate portions a few times per week. This is where many people hesitate because red meat has long been surrounded by mixed messaging. But it is important to distinguish clearly between processed meats and high-quality unprocessed cuts. They are not metabolically equivalent, and treating them as the same has led to confusion in nutritional guidance for older adults. Grass-fed beef is one of the richest natural sources of creatine available in food. Creatine is essential for rapid energy production in muscle cells, particularly during movements that require quick force, such as standing up, climbing stairs, or correcting balance. These are exactly the movements that become more difficult with age. As muscle creatine stores decline over time, the ability to perform these fast, stabilizing actions also decreases. This is one of the key biological reasons fall risk increases in older populations. Supporting creatine levels through diet can help counteract that decline. Grass-fed beef also contains carnitine, a compound that helps transport fatty acids into mitochondria, improving energy efficiency in muscle cells. This becomes increasingly important as mitochondrial function naturally declines with age. Research from the University of Nottingham has shown that older adults consuming lean red meat as part of a balanced diet, combined with regular movement, preserves significantly more fast-twitch muscle fiber density in the thighs compared to those consuming equivalent protein from plant-based sources alone. A practical intake recommendation is 4 to 6 ounces, 2 to 3 times per week, prepared using simple cooking methods like grilling or slow cooking without processed sauces or marinades that add unnecessary additives. At this stage, we begin to see a clear pattern across all 5 foods. Each one supports a different aspect of muscle function: protein signaling, inflammation control, oxygen delivery, nerve communication, and cellular energy production. We now reach the final part of this countdown, and this is where everything comes together into a clearer understanding of why leg strength does not decline in a simple, linear way. It is not just about getting older in a general sense. It is about very specific biological systems slowly losing efficiency and how the right nutrition can support those systems at the exact points where they weaken. When we look across all 5 foods, a pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Each one targets a different layer of muscle function. Some improve protein utilization, others reduce inflammation, others restore oxygen delivery or nerve signaling. And when these are missing, the body does not just become slightly weaker, it becomes less responsive at the cellular level. This is why many older adults feel as if their strength is slipping away, even when they are still active. The issue is not only muscle mass, it is the communication system inside the muscle itself. Before we close, it is important to understand something clearly. The research discussed here is not based on isolated theories. It comes from multiple long-term studies involving older adults, including people in their late 80s and 90s, where measurable improvements in muscle strength and mobility were observed when targeted dietary patterns were followed. That detail matters because it challenges one of the most common assumptions in aging, that decline is fixed and irreversible. What we actually see is that muscle tissue remains responsive far longer than most people realize, but it requires the right biological signals to activate repair processes efficiently, and this is where everything becomes practical again. Across the foods we discussed, there is a shared principle. Salmon supports cellular sensitivity and reduces inflammation, so protein can be used more effectively. Greek yogurt provides leucine, the trigger that turns on muscle repair. Spinach improves oxygen delivery and supports endurance at the vascular level. Eggs restore nerve signaling and hormonal support needed for contraction and stability. And red meat provides creatine and carnitine, which directly fuel the explosive strength required for real-world movement like standing, stepping, and balancing. When you combine these effects, the result is not just stronger muscles in theory, but more reliable movement in daily life. That is what matters most at this stage of life. Not athletic performance, but independence. Let me be direct with you. If you are in your late 60s, 70s, 80s, or beyond, and you have started noticing that your legs feel less stable, that stairs take more effort, or that standing up requires more thought than it used to, that is not simply normal aging in the way it is often described. It is a reflection of how well your muscles are still receiving the nutrients they need to function properly. The encouraging part is that muscle tissue, even in advanced age, does not completely lose its ability to respond. It adapts, it repairs, it reacts, but only when it is given the right biochemical environment to do so. This is why diet becomes so central, not as a minor detail, but as a foundational factor that influences strength more than most people are ever told. And perhaps the most important takeaway from everything we have covered is this: independence is not only preserved through movement or medication, it is also preserved through daily nutritional choices that support the systems responsible for balance, strength, and stability. The ability to stand without assistance, to walk confidently, to climb stairs in your own home, and to maintain control over your daily life is not something that should be surrendered quietly to age without question. It is something that can often be supported and improved when the underlying biology is addressed properly. If you take anything from this, let it be this understanding: your body is still capable of responding. The signals just need to be strong enough, consistent enough, and biologically appropriate enough to activate that response. And that is exactly what these foods are designed to do. Before you go, I want to leave you with a simple reflection. Think about your daily meals this week. Ask yourself which of these foods are already present and which ones are missing, because small, consistent changes in nutrition often lead to changes in strength that people only notice when daily life starts feeling easier again. If you have followed this entire countdown, then you now understand something very important. Leg strength is not just a matter of exercise, it is a reflection of how well your body is being supported from the inside, and that is something you still have control over. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.